Hey everybody, Aaron Cowan, Sage Dynamics, and this is the Cloud Defensive OWL. A little over a year ago, the OWL was announced, the optimized weapon light, as a rail-specific integrated switch system that was going to put out, initial quotes were a lot of lumens, and more importantly, for me anyway, is a lot of candela. Now, just over a year later, they're shipping and they're available, but is it worth the squeeze? Is it going to be a major contender for some of the against, I should say, some of the already really venerable, really well-known, and really high-quality weapon light systems that are on the market? The quick answer to that is yes. The OWL is a very, very good product. It has some very unique, I wouldn't say unique, but some very interesting attributes that make it, that lend itself very, very well to the use of a dedicated weapon light on a rifle that's going to be used for shooting at night. One thing that there is a little bit of confusion about when it comes to the OWL is people say, well, I can't really, or I don't really see a way that I could use that in conjunction with my IR system, my D-ball, my PEC, my MAWL, whatever it is you have. This light isn't necessarily for you. I'm told they have products in the works that will work well in concert with your IR system, but the majority of the people out there, and keeping in mind, people who shoot under night vision, it's a much smaller category than people who just want a white light on their rifle for duty or for home defense, self-defense use. So the OWL is not for the IR market, even though technically, I mean, if you really wanted to make it work, you could, but it's not designed with that kind of shooter in mind. Getting into the features of the optimized weapon light, I have an integrated switching system that is Picatinny. It is designed to mount to the 12 o'clock, even though if you really wanted to, you could mount it to the 3 or 9 or even the 6 if you want to do things on hard mode, I guess. But it's reversible, so the head and the tail can be swapped so you can put the light on either side of the rifle. Some people don't like the overall size of it. They feel like it looks big, and I think that's a little bit of a trick of the eye because the bezel and the body are pretty much the same circumference. As far as overall circumference, it's comparable to some of the other lights that are already out there, such as like the Streamlight HLX. It's very similar in size, so it's not really as big as maybe it appears to be. Of course, you need to get one in hand to really get a comparison there. Another cool feature is it's user serviceable. If you happen to break the lens, which would be really, really hard to do, you'd almost have to do it on purpose, and I'll get into why, you can fix that yourself. And it's forward thinking. If a new head comes out, which one probably will, you can just buy that, swap it out. You're not going to have to buy a total new unit. Another concern that people generally have when the light's in this position is it going to be ambi? Am I going to be able to make easy transitions, either full handoffs of the rifle from left shoulder to right shoulder to left shoulder, and still be able to work and activate the pressure pad? The answer to that is yes. I mean, you're seeing it here. I was able to do it on a couple different rifle lengths. It wasn't really a concern. Now, another part of this review is the Cloud's core rail. This particular rail was designed with the OWL in mind to set it deeper into the rail surface, still leaving enough clearance for your gas block on your direct impingement rifles. But even without this rail, the OWL works very well on multiple length rifles. One of the things that I was initially concerned with the switching system being built into the light was, what if it's not an SBR or an AR pistol? What if I'm using a 14.5 or a 16-inch gun? Am I still going to be able to get my light in a good position and activate it using my traditional rifle grip that I would use on that longer rail surface? I threw it on my Sage rifle, which is a 14.5. And I was able to use it effortlessly. I really didn't have to think about it. I didn't have to stretch or reach or hold the gun in any uncomfortable way to be able to activate my light source. It is powered off of rechargeables, 18650. Some people didn't like the fact that they couldn't use 123As. Here's the thing, the future of light output is rechargeables. 123s are just not going to be able to keep up with the lumen demands of lights. You can see that now with some of the other systems that are out there that are dual fuel or dual purpose. When you switch them over to 123s, they tend to lose a lot of their output, or some of their output, a significant amount of their output, we'll put it that way. That's because the 123s, unless they go to like a 9 or a 12 volt system, meaning 3 or 4 batteries, they're not going to be able to hang with an 18650 single battery or an 18650 side by side. Like there's some things out there that, you know, there's lights out there that use that type of setup. Generally, one single 18650, which is comparable in footprint to a 6 volt, your traditional 2 battery unit, is going to be able to put out more lumens and more candela for a comparable runtime. Performance is in the numbers. 50,000 candela, 1250 lumens. Lumens is the marketing buzzword that people use to sell lights, which casually lumens can be explained as measuring total output. Candela can be casually explained as how much light is reaching to a certain point. I want candela and lumens. Just lumens isn't enough. I mean, I have a floodlight on my house that has 5,000 lumens, but the candela is not there because it's a floodlight. It's just intended to give you casual lighting for a large area, but not to a point. When it comes to a weapon light, a weapon I'm going to use for positive target identification and shooting at distance, I want to be able to positively identify targets at extended ranges and, more importantly maybe, remove the visual horizon of bad guys at increased distances. Traditionally, weapon lights, they could take a lot of data away from a bad guy at, you know, 10, 15, 20 meters, and they'd start to fall off dramatically after that because the candela just wasn't there, the hot spot just wasn't there. Using the OWL and some force on force with some of my alumni, I was able to not only PID targets in varied lighting conditions at extended ranges indoors and out, but I was also able to control and remove the visual horizon of those real live human beings in those varied lighting conditions at extended ranges. We're talking 30, 40, 50 meters, which is substantial for a weapon light that can be used in conjunction for PID at those same distances, of course mounted on a rifle, which we expect to shoot farther than a handgun anyway. Now, I'd love to have the same output on a pistol. But we're talking specifically for rifle purposes. So if you're hung up on the lumen number, you also need to pay attention to the candela number and actually see visibly through your own experimentation with weapon lights what kind of hotspot reach you're actually getting. I threw this on my SMOS GFY and I was able to shoot steel comfortably PID out to 200 meters. The range was so dark that without the light I wouldn't have been able to see the steel at all. So it was the light and only the light that allowed me to be able to do that. Of course, you know, the very first thing I do with any product that I'm reviewing that's gun-centric is the burn down. 500 rounds as fast as possible to see if it causes any kind of problem with whatever the product may be. In this case, I wanted to see if, especially factoring in the Core V1 rail sits the control surface of the OWL closer to the gas block, very close to the gas block. I wanted to see if 500 rounds of accelerated rate of fire, that heat generated at the gas block, would create any problems with the functionality of the OWL. So here's your burn down. I'm happy to report that 500 rounds accelerated rate of fire created no issues with the OWL. Throughout the 2,000 round review process, the light rode on a few different guns, including select fire. Full auto created no issues whatsoever. Functionality is there, it stays there. Battery life is awesome. And another cool feature that I like about the OWL is the switching interface. You don't have to hit a sweet spot. It's got a very, very generous pressure pad, and no matter where you apply pressure to that pressure pad, it's going to activate the light, either constant on or momentary. More about the rail, because the rail is something that's optional, and since it rode the gun for 2,000 rounds, I guess you can kind of consider this video a review of the rail as well. It uses the BCM barrel nut system. They licensed it, which is awesome because the BCM system is great. The rail itself is M-LOK, and it comes with 2 QD points for your sling. The rear QD is a little shallow depending on what barrel you have in there, so if you have very, very deep QDs, they may not work with the rear one, but they will work at the front. My shallow ones worked, my deep ones didn't. That's how I figured that out based on whichever sling I was throwing on the gun at the time. One thing that's going to come up, I know it's going to come up, is sight radius. Okay, so you don't really have the ability to mount a sight up here. Here's the thing, and I'm almost positive I'm going to have to do another video on this after this video comes out. You do lose some sight radius in this. It's got about 11 inches of sight radius in this configuration. Not a really big deal because I have an optic, and these are backup sights. And my light takes priority. My light activation takes priority over my backup sight. Kind of my mentality behind that is, if I can't activate my light comfortably, then even if my irons go down, or I should say my optic goes down and I need to use irons, if I cannot activate my light comfortably, then the irons aren't really going to serve much of a purpose. So losing a little bit of sight radius in order to gain ideal placement, especially on a short-barreled rifle or an AR pistol, doesn't bother me at all. I like the rail. I like the fact that it exists, even though shooting it on a traditional circumference rail on my PWS, or well, actually I think I used 2 PWSs, and even on the SMOS, I didn't find the added height, because it's going to sit higher on a regular rail, to be really any issue at all. Activating the light was still easy, intuitive. My thumb was long enough. I didn't experience any issues. If you have smaller hands, I could see how that could potentially be a problem, but I didn't experience any issues with light activation regardless of what rifle I had it mounted on. That's all well and good, but what about durability? Is the OWL going to be a durable light? Well, I put it through some drop tests. I did not have concrete available to me at the range I was using that day for the drop test, but I did have a whole bunch of rocks. So I did numerous drops on the rock surface with the light on, and periodically throughout the drops I also loaded one single round and I shot a man-sized steel target at 100 meters. The reason I'm doing that throughout the drop testing, four shots, is to see if the rail loses, I guess, tweaks a little bit, loses its zero on that front side. I wanted to see if the rail would twist or turn in any way. I pretty much knew it wouldn't because it's a BCM barrel nut system. I've got BCM systems on other rails, including BCM uppers, where they've taken some significant hits to the rail surface, and I didn't lose the zero on that front sight. Of course, you know, as a cautionary tale, as I say with anything, if you drop your rifle significantly in this way, you should probably check the zero on everything on the gun that needs to have a zero before you trust your life to that rifle. I went back and watched the video and I realized that one of those drops wasn't quite shoulder height, which shoulder height is kind of the height that I like to drop things from, so I just dropped it a whole bunch more times. And I'm happy to report that after numerous drops, not only did the light still function, but I was able to shoot steel from 50 out to 250 meters just using the iron sights. I'd have to put it on paper to definitively see if any zero was lost, but in an emergency situation, if your optic failed and it was low light and you dropped your rifle 15 times, yeah, I could still hit a man-sized target at 250 meters. Final verdict on the OWL. Any rifle I have that doesn't have a night vision purpose, such as has a PEQ 15 or a MAWL or a D-ball or something like that mounted, is getting an OWL. That's it. I think it's the best dedicated low light weapon light I've seen to date, that everything's built into one unit. It really lends itself well to AR pistols and SBRs, but it works just as well on longer guns. I've got good battery runtime. Everything's self-contained. That cap you twist off, that's the wrench for installing the OWL, so everything you need is right there. It runs off 18650s, which, you know, again, some people are a little hesitant about that, but you get 300 to 400 cycles out of a really good quality battery. It's not a big deal to have 4 of them charged up and in your bag. They're going to maintain their charge for a very long time, and they're going to be there if you need them in your rifle, and they're going to give you the same runtime that you would get out of a comparable light using 123s. And the future of light output is going to be rechargeables anyway. The 123 has kind of reached its livelihood as a 3 or a 6 volt system. You'd need, like I said, 9 or 12 to go any higher than that. But I'm glad that the OWL exists. I'm glad that somebody brought it out. It did take a while to get it there, and there's been some some gentle ribbing about that, but Cloud Defensive is a new company, and for them to come out of the gate with a product that's this awesome, again, time will tell. I only did 2,000 rounds on it plus some force on force, but if the performance continues, which I'm going to see because I do plan on getting a couple more of these for my rifles that I don't use that don't have night vision purposes, I think that we're going to continue to see really good things from them, which is good because it's nice to have options, and having more than 2 really high quality rifle light options on the market is going to be good for everybody. And if your rifle is only going to be used for home defense, or it's never going to be used in an IR capacity or a laser capacity, then there's really no reason not to go with a system like this, because it's simple, intuitive, it's very bright, and it gives you PID at very much more extended ranges than some of the comparable lights that are out there. So if you ask me, the Owl's an amazing light. It's durable. It's going to have a long service life, and I'm excited to see what else they have in store to fill some of those other niche categories that people like myself need lights for. I'm Aaron Count with Sage Dynamics. Train accordingly.